We're gonna do a lettering workshop today! Hey guys, what's up? How is everyone doing on the internet? I'm so excited to be able to do another workshop with you guys, my patrons, my beloveds that give me money every single month. So that way I can go ahead and give back and teach you guys everything I know about being a hand lettering artist. So during today's workshop, we're going to be focusing on the latest style that just came out on patreon.com/lettershop. It's called Novel Lubalin. I know it's like a weird thing to see, the kind I chose, but I really wanted to do my own kind of take on Lubalin, which is more of like an Art Deco kind of vintage style, adding a serif and then showing you guys how to go ahead and add custom swashes. So with this workshop, I want to walk you through just the top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what I think are the hardest letters in the latest workbook. And then we're going to go through a couple of exercises to kind of help you guys get more familiar with not just drawing letters, but really making them your own, because that's the whole point of lettering. I really want us to get out of the habit of just, yes, it's a good to practice, but also I want you to be able to use your imagination to be able to create really cool pieces of art. So let's get into it. So I have a worksheet here. I just went ahead and put together what I thought were all the hardest letters to do. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through step by step on how to create these different letter forms. So right now I'm going to be busting out my iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. I'm using a program called AstroPad, so that way I can screen mirror Photoshop to my iPad Pro. Okay. So let's zoom in here. Make sure I'm on the right program. There we go. I'm using a pencil brush. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy this just one time just to kind of quickly review, and then we'll start to actually put this style into words. So W is always kind of a hard letter just because especially when it's tight and condensed like it is here. So what we really want to do is we want to think of a W, especially this kind of style, in terms of 2 different uppercase V's. So we just want to go ahead and do a V and then another V. Now, depending on how tight these V's are, depends on how tight you want the overall letter to be. So I'm going to try to make maybe a little bit wider of a version than I did before, just to show you. And I want this other V to kind of come in the middle, almost in the exact vertical center of those 2 lines. So right here. And then I want it to have equal distance down here. So just like how I had this kind of middle point over here, I want to be able to have the same amount of weight from here to here, from here to here. Boop, boop. If you want to mark it like I did, that can be a little bit more helpful. And then go ahead, equal distance, do your W. Now you'll see in mine that the space between this stroke and this stroke is actually a little bit wider than this one to this one. So I'm just going to redo it. And that's a little bit more even. Hey Nicole, happy Sunday. Hey girl. Just going over some hard letters. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and add weight. Now, what I think is a really good way to add weight, especially if you want the bottom of your W to lie flat, is to use these strokes as kind of like the middle. So you add a little bit of weight on the left, and then you add a little bit of weight on the right. And then you do the same thing here on the center, a little bit of weight on the top, a little bit of weight on the bottom. Now I focused on those strokes first because I have limited space because of how condensed this style is. And here, let me super zoom in here. And then that way, when I'm adding the outside stroke, everything is pretty much under control because those inside negative gaps are at a good spot. And then you can just go ahead and fill these in. It can look a little crazy with all the weird spider lines. I'm using a really kind of thick pencil. I probably can make this smaller, but all right. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. And then when we add serifs, what we want to do is just draw a line where we want them. And here, let me go ahead and make this a little bit darker than my guides, just so you guys can really see what I'm working with. All right, so we're going to draw on the top of our W all the serif lines. Right, just almost like a slab serif, and then we're going to kind of create these little hooks that go into the strokes. And that's how you add what I like to call a subtle serif. The key with something like a W is to make sure none of those serifs are actually touching, or else it's going to impede readability. So if you're having a hard time doing like a super condensed W, just try to make those V's we talked about next time a little bit wider. And if you're using Photoshop, you can go ahead, boop, 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 boop. Actually, this is on its own layer, so it doesn't matter. And go ahead and use the skew tool because my W is a little drunk looking, and just boop, boop. And now he's perfecto mundo. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to an S. An S is like pretty much the most annoying letter ever to draw for any style. So we wanna go ahead, start. The trick to an S is to go a little bit above and a little bit below these guidelines. The darker lines here are the top of the letters and the bottom of the letters. The bottom of the line, again, being the baseline, the top of the capital letters being the cap height. So we're gonna go ahead, try to mimic that same shape of the S. I've lowered the size of my S. I actually really like this S, so I'm gonna cheat. So this is a good example of, see how much more further this stroke goes above this line and how much further this goes down. So I just want those to be even. I want it to be like kind of just popping, just a little pop off those baselines. Okay, now we're gonna focus on what is the spine. This is the middle downward stroke of this S. And just like how we did with the W, we're gonna add a little bit of weight above and below. So just kind of follow that same amount of weight we did at the top and at the bottom. So this would be what's called a varied weight serif. Now to connect it all together, I made this thinner for some reason, probably because I'm using a smaller brush, and you just kind of make up the difference. And you can have this guy, here, I'll thicken this guy up a little bit. Sometimes by doing it in like sections, it just makes it a little bit easier. And then you can always build off of it. So it's kind of just adding weight a little bit here, a little bit there until it starts to line up. I really want you guys to get out of the habit of just being like, hold on, that's really bad. Going like this. This is not, we don't do this because notice it works. And as I go down here, it's going below. So that actually doesn't make much sense to do it that way. If you are going to do it this way, you got to switch gears once it gets here and then you go like that. Just to make sure it's more consistent. So we pretty much have the end of this S. Now, in order for me to do a serif, I'm just going to have it kind of go up and then hook out like this. There's much subtler ways we can do this, but I kind of wanted to be a little dramatic with this guy, and then we just fill it in. And then from here, as always, we fill these guys in so we can really make sure that the weight is staying consistent. I can see that the top's a little thick, the bottom's a little thin. Now, more so that it's filled in, so I can just add a little bit more weight, and we're good. And this is pretty much like what the perfection process, the refinement process looks like for any of your letters, right? So we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. Yeah, that S is popping. Thanks, Nicole. All right, so let's get into that M. Just like the W, we want to go ahead and, I think it's up to you what you want to do, but I think just the same way we had the V's and how we were trying to figure out how wide we want that letter to be, sometimes that can be easier when we just draw the two downward strokes of the M, just trying to mimic that same weight. Come on, baby. Something like that, right? And then you can mark the middle spot where those two lines kind of go, and then that way you have a place to put these downward strokes. So that way you have your M skeleton. Now, again, since we don't want a point in this middle, we want a flat bridge. Do the same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of weight on top. I'm going to add a little bit of weight on bottom. I'm going to add a little bit of weight on top. Boop, boop, boop. Weight on top, a little weight on bottom. So that way it reaches a flat crevice. And then go ahead, add a little bit of weight on top, a little bit on the bottom. Are we seeing a pattern? Yes. Oop. And that's how we know all these kind of things are kind of connected. Now I'm breaking this down more so than I normally do in my worksheets just to make it insanely easy, just to add more steps essentially to creating each letter form. So it's just not so overwhelming, right? All right, again, we want to go ahead and mark a flat line where we're going to put those serifs. This helps our serifs just have the same look, because I don't know if you ever experienced this, but when you're adding serifs to your letters, you might notice that the serifs always look kind of different. It's because you're doing them all in one bit. You're not breaking down the steps to make sure it's flat or rounded or wider or shorter. And also I want to make sure that this stem, where's my mouse, Come to me, mouse. Oh, I see you on the left. Oh, it's really tiny. Okay, it's right here. It's like a little bug on my screen. I want to make sure that this stem right here is in the center of this horizontal line that I'm using for that serif. So that's also another reason that I do that. Then we're going to go ahead, just curve it into it to the stroke. If you want to add a serif on the bottom here, cool. And then we just fill it in. And it looks pretty exact, actually, to our original M. And again, the most important part here isn't just that the weight is staying consistent within the letter form, that all the strokes look the same, but also that, again, that negative space between this side and this side looks the same. The negative space is just as important as the positive space. Okay, moving on. We're going to go to that letter K. We're going to start with the left stem, just draw a straight line from the cap height to the baseline. And then we're going to go ahead and start somewhere around here. So just a little bit lower than the actual X height. Thanks, Rick Renzak, who just subscribed on YouTube. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to curl this baby up all the way up. And then we're going to curl it like this. And then this leg, you want to go ahead, and I'm going to say this every video just to make it super clear, just to make sure no one's left out of where we put this leg on this K. But it's almost like a horizontal line from that top point of the stroke of your K, okay? So just go ahead and visualize that. So if you do it from here, that obviously doesn't sync up to here, so that's how you know the leg is wrong. So I'm going to go ahead, have it be like here, and have it come down. Once I'm adding weight, if I add weight on the right side of my stroke, it's going to start to cut into this negative space that I have here. So instead, baby steps, a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom. Same thing here, a little bit on the top. Try to make an even weight. I know it's kind of hard. And then a little bit on the top here. And I'm going to have this kind of fade into this, just to make sure that my letter isn't actually going above here. So I just kind of changed directions and went below. Like a fucking letter ninja. This guy, a little bit below, a little bit on the top. Let's fill her in to make sure she's consistent. I can already tell that maybe that leg's a little skinny. So I just need to make sure by doing a quick scribble. And another key that I'll say when I was like kind of figuring it out, when I was like figuring out the style, is I really like when the swashes are flat, like versus the swash being like this, like on a curve. I really like it that it's flat. It gives it almost like if you were using like perfect 90-degree angles. Is that true for every K? Pretty much, yeah, unless you're doing like a really stylistic K. And it's the same thing whether it's a lowercase K or it's a capital K. Because the key here with kind of using this left corner of the stroke is so that way that we have enough guaranteed negative space right here between that leg and that stroke. So that way we know it's going to be really readable. Because notice the same amount of negative space here is more or less the same negative space here. These complementary shapes are really, really important and are key factors in readability. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop up this leg a little bit. It was a little skinny, needs to add some meat to those bones. Then just draw a straight line for the serif. Again, don't just do this. Don't just start drawing serifs. Don't do that. That's wrong. Draw the line. Do it and sit. Break it up. And then hook it out. Hook it out. It'll also make it easier when you're doing like... Because like doing like almost like an eye serif right here, where it's just... You're just playing with right angles. It's an easy way to do a serif. But when you have this guy, where it's already at an angle, then it has to go on more of an angle, it can get a little bit of confusing of like how to position that serif by breaking it down into those two phases. One again being the straight line and then just adding the curve to the stroke. It's going to make it a little bit easier. Okay, now we're going to do the letter G. Yeah, I'm so happy to help, Erica. Thanks for hanging out, girl. This G is really, really wide. So you'll notice within this entire type style, the O and the G and the Q are hella wide and everything's more or less tall and condensed being it's taller than it is wide. So this is almost more of like a geometric style throwback, which is really commonly used in the Lubalin style. So that's why I used it here. So we almost want to do like a semicircle here. Again, we're going to go slightly above and below the baseline because we're dealing with a big bowl here. And this might take a little bit, but it'll just take a little bit of practice. Just try to do a wide circle. You'll notice that I almost went shorter and then I fixed it. Happens every time. Again, if you're having issues with a bowl, sometimes it can help to mark the top, the bottom, and the sides. And then you go ahead and fill the circle. If you notice that you can't get that width that you're looking for, sometimes those little markers can really help. And so right about here, it's a full circle, right? But this guy, I'm already messing up. This guy, I stopped right about here, like for the letter C, because this guy actually comes out a little bit more to the right than this one. See the difference between this space and this space? We're doing this on purpose. So that way it looks like it's balancing and it's not going to topple off and roll right down the road. Let me just go ahead and do the straight line. Now when adding weight, again, love those straight lines for the ends. So notice I didn't do this. I went straight. It gives it more of that serif look on the bowl itself. And then just try to match that weight all throughout. Might want to go a little bit light here. You might have to do it in sections, make it a little sketchy, whatever feels comfortable to your hand that doesn't totally stress you out. Might take a couple lines, may take one, just depends on how much you practice bowls. And then we just go ahead, go down. I'm starting to get sketchy. And now one thing to note is if you start to notice that you're not feeling sketchy, but like drawing really sketchy, it means you're not feeling confident in your lines. It has nothing to do with your actual talent or skill to draw that shape. It's just a fucking anxiety. So that's something I thought was really interesting. So next time you try to draw, if you find yourself doing it scruffy, go back, try to do it smooth because it's all in your head. It's just bullshit. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I went ahead, had a practice run, I'm going to try to draw this line just a little bit more confidently. So instead of being like shaky, I'm going to try to be a little bit smoother. Even if I have to do it a couple more times, I'm just going to go slower. Not too slow where I lose control of the pencil. Pick it up if my wrist starts to, I'm feeling like a pause on my wrist. It doesn't move past a certain point. Cool, just change angles. Remember, drawing towards yourself. You're always going to have more control over your line. That's a little bit more of a confident line, and then kind of go over it a little bit harder. Then go ahead and add this guy. Go ahead and add that fill. And then, that'll be the truth teller is the fill. I can tell that I went a little skinny towards the bottom. That's okay. Okay. Last letter is the U. Now after this, we're going to go ahead and do some exercises together just so we can really start to practice with swashes. So we're going to go ahead and do a U. If you want to go ahead and draw 2 straight lines and then connect them, I think that's actually the easiest way to do a U versus just going like this. I could just do that, and it doesn't look too awful. But the reason I don't want to do that is because I want to make sure that the 2 lines, the 2 downward strokes of my U are actually parallel. And I want to make sure one doesn't look like it's kinked or off axis. So I'll go ahead and I'll just draw 2 straight lines for as long as I can get straight before I have to curve, and then connect them. Because again, anytime we try to break up a step of drawing something, it's always going to be more exact because you're giving yourself a moment to fucking figure it out and connect the dots. Let me go ahead and curl it. Boop. That's so much better than the first time me just being like bloop bloop. Just being a little bit more precise. We're going to go ahead, add a little bit of weight in the top of the bottom, just like before. This guy. My dog is totally snoring. Now it's up to you if you want this to be curved or if you want it to be straight like we've been doing. I'm going to go ahead and straighten it out because I do like that better. Even though I didn't do it OG. Same thing here. Add weight. Now notice I don't continue. I just go ahead and I make up the space somewhere else because it just, again, gives me another moment of pause. So that way this actually looks like a little U inside a U. Fill that sucker in. All right, then we go ahead and do the lines for the serifs, just straight lines. Curved them into the stroke. And then you got some beautiful letters right over here, right? Looking good. Okay, so those are pretty much the hardest letters. It's a pretty simple style, but we're gonna get into the hard stuff right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, turn these guys off. and just do a couple practice rounds. So we have Nicole and Erica here. So I'm going to go ahead and use your guys' names as practice. So please feel free to come with me and just draw alongside me. If you want to do a different word, feel free. All right, so we're going to go ahead. When we do a word, we want to make sure that we get the skeleton down first. But we're actually going to be doing 2 skeletons. So let's go ahead and just do what I'm going to call the basic bitch skeleton, which is we're just going to use this style, condensed. Well, it'd be a sans serif because we're not going to add serifs for our skeleton. So let's go ahead and start with Nicole. So I'm going to go ahead, draw a straight line. And then this is me doing this without looking at the reference at all. And I highly recommend you do the same. All right, now the trick with the N was it wasn't like a normal N. It didn't like go like this. It went like right here in the middle and then crossed, right? And I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little bit more extra room here in between letters, just because I want to be safe. So just doing a straight I. That C, remember, just like the O, needs to be super wide. So if you want to go ahead and give yourself those markers to make life a little bit easier, feel free to do that. All right, now we got a really wide C and a really wide O, so let's do the same thing again. Marker on the top, marker on the bottoms, marker on the sides. Just try to figure out how wide I want that O to be, maybe a little bit wider. Go ahead, try to do a full circle. Again, if you're running out of space, you want to go a little bit above and below. O's, I always have to like do this. Just go around and around and around. It just slightly gets rounder and rounder every time. 5 years of lettering, still have to do that. Unless if I made this smaller, probably make it easier. Now don't worry about kerning. We're not gonna freak out about it. I make wobbly lines. That's okay. I do too. What's up, Rick? All right, we're gonna go ahead and do that L, which is a straight L. And then the E. I'm gonna go ahead and again make let's go ahead and use a color just to make this stand out just a smidge more. You're a cool girl, so cool girls rock purple, so we're gonna do purple. Okay, and then it's a pretty low crossbar, so I'm gonna put it right below that X height. Now, that is the first skeleton, step 1, okay? So once the entire word's complete, if you're working digitally, then I would go ahead and lasso tool things out, make sure the kerning's a little bit better. Things that I know I'm going to have to fix. This E needs to come over. Boop, 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 boop. If you're working traditionally, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself out. I'm just going to do it because I'm anal as fuck. All right, so move that E just a smidge. Merge my layers back up again. Cool. So that is my wireframe. So if you are working traditionally, you want to make sure that you're using a light pad or a tracing pad or tracing paper and just go ahead and put another piece of paper and redraw a skeleton. Is that C wider than the N? Yes, it is. It's much wider. The O, anything with a bowl, so C, Q, O, those kinds of letters, G, those are all going to be really, really much wider than the other styles. And this N will look a lot thinner once I add weight to it too. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put another layer in Photoshop. I'm not going to worry about reducing the opacity because it's pretty light. And now this is when we're going to go ahead and put in a skeleton for our swashes. This is when we're going to try to be a little bit crazy, a little creative, try to figure out how can we customize this? What can we do to make this look fucking sweet? So first thing, the O can't really, let's go ahead and rule out the letters we can't fuck with. The O, there's no extension, there's no line, can't do anything about it. The C, if I go ahead and I change the top line or the bottom line, it's going to either look like a G or it's going to completely change the style. And the only thing I could do with the C is I could change it and have it kind of go like this underneath it. So that's one option you can do if you're kind of digging that. Let me go ahead and make sure that I'm going to use a different color this time. I'm going to use, let's say, a blue, just so we can see the difference. And I just want you to start to play with different things you can do. So if you like that C that went under, do that. You could do that. This I, can't do anything to the I, not going to fuck with it. This L, I could go ahead and I can have it curve under this E. Now the first thing I see is an opportunity for a connection. So if I'm going to go ahead and lower this, I can go ahead and I can actually connect it to that crossbar of the E if I wanted to, because it's such a natural movement. Or I could just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to go ahead and have it come out. Other things we could do, and I'm just showing you all the options because I want you to play with everything, even if it looks like a loopy-doopy mess. Just see, you don't know unless you try. Another thing we could do is we could have this extend and have it curl over the O. We could do that. This E could, instead of it being straight, could kind of curl. Or we could do a different kind of E altogether and have it be more like this, but that probably would break the style. This N, we can do a bunch of things with this N. We can have an extension here, an extension here, an extension here. There's pretty much anywhere where there's a stroke or a crossbar, you can fuck with it. You can extend it, curl it, fucking tweak it, whatever you want to do. So with Nicole's name, I think my favorite things that we tried is I actually do like the C because it's in the middle of her name. So it kind of helps highlight and underline her name, which is kind of cool balance. So I'm going to go ahead and just have it kind of go underneath the O. I like this N being curled right here. And I actually want the symmetry of this L. So that way I have something going over and under the O. That's kind of nice. And then we have a crossbar here at the E, so there's nothing saying like I can't just curl it like that. But the only thing we want to keep in mind is we have to pay attention to the rules of typography. So these are strokes. This middle guy, which is the crossbar, cannot extend past those two top lines. So this guy can only come up to like maybe right here. He can't be more adventurous than that, or else he looks crazy, or he might look like another weird H or something. We don't want that. So we go ahead, we have our official skeleton. So I'm gonna go in another color, and now we're gonna add weight the same way we did the first time. So I'm gonna use, let's say red. Let's just stick to warm colors. That's brown. We don't want shit brown in Nicole's name. That's not gonna work for me. Okay. Here we go. Now we're gonna do it little by little, whatever makes you the most comfortable. Especially when you start to notice your swashes are kind of intruding on the space of your strokes. You don't want to keep adding weight so that way all of your lines are like fucking with each other. You want enough space so everyone has their own kind of room in the composition. So I'm actually going to start adding weight on the right of this N. And I'm going to go on the inside just to make this really more condensed. And I want this stroke in the middle to be in the middle. So I'm going to add, instead of just adding weight in the top or bottom, I'm going to add a little bit of weight on the top and the bottom. So every time you're drawing a letter, there's no rule saying you have to add weight on the right. You have to add weight to the left. Just do it where you have the best space. There is no right symmetry that you need. Same thing here. I don't want to add weight up there because I don't want to go past the cap height. So I know I can only add weight down here. And just try your best to match your, I'm actually going to go over. Then I want this to be flat. Try to match the weight the best you can. Even if it means that you end up erasing a little bit, that's fine. I'm actually going to erase it just because I do want to show you weight. I want to show you like all the steps on top of each other as strokes. All right, the I, we always want to do it from the middle. There's never a time where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to add weight in the left and right of this letter. Unless I know there was a kerning mistake. Like if this C was closer to the I, then I would have added weight on the left side. So that way it would be a little bit closer to the N. But I did a pretty good job nailing this sucker in the middle. So I'm going to add weight from the middle. That next line sucks. I'm going to fix that line. You suck. If you guys are wondering how I'm getting my line so straight, I'm just hitting shift. And that's how you do a straight line. For this C, since I'm going ahead and I extended it, I have an idea of like, okay, what if I curled it more? Because there's no way it's going to look like another letter from the top because of how we elongated the bottom, so I can kind of play with it a little bit more. Then you're just going to try to add, keyword try, to add weight. Now, I noticed how this bottom underline right here might be cutting it a little bit close to this O if I put it on top. So I'm going to go ahead, add a little on the bottom, little on the top, just so I don't intrude on that space of the O. And I don't want to go below my extra guide here, so I'm just distributing the weight differently. I'm kind of giving myself a baseline, and then I'm going ahead and I'm kind of like building it from there. while still trying to stay within my guides. The O, just like how we did it on the outside, we're going to go ahead and mark it on the inside. You hear snoring? That is legit my dog snoring behind me. She's a sleepy, lazy girl. So if you do those kind of markers, go ahead and just kind of connect those markers. Try to do the best you can. O's always take a lot of refinement for me. And something that can help with the O is if you just turn your page or your artboard or whatever. You okay there, Ringo? He just looked at me like, I miss you. I know, honey. I'm right here. He's been my dog's been kind of sick lately. He's got some liver issues, so I'm gonna take a little break to pet him. You're okay, honey. I know. He's 10. He's an old man. So we want to make sure there's always like kind of like a gangster lean that you'll put in with your O's. Like it'll always lean to the right or it'll always lean to the left. So sometimes by turning it upside down, you can visually see that wobbliness a little bit better. So you can kind of try to make it more symmetrical. All right, I'm going to go ahead, add some weight on this L. Since I can see that there's more space between the L and the E than there is the L and the O. Going to go ahead and add the weight on the right. Oh, Rick, we all suck at O's, my friend. That's why we have Photoshop ellipses, right? I use those a lot sometimes, especially if I'm trying to do a perfect circle. I'm gonna go ahead, make this guy, using this as like a middle. Again, don't want to get too close to that O. Want to make it more consistent. Go ahead, add that weight. On the E, I'm gonna, the L looks pretty centered on that E, but there's still a little bit of space, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of space on the left, a little bit of space on the right, and now it has perfecto mundo kerning. Go ahead, add weight on this guy, this guy. If you want to add that curl, actually, no, I'll keep him. I'll just have him do something like that. All right. So we went ahead and we added weight. The last step is to fill in. So this is when we really make sure that everything's looking smooth, everything's looking consistent. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of overdraw on all my different colors here, just to make sure that when I delete those layers, I can actually like see what the fuck I did. Doesn't have to be perfect. Scribble. It can just be like literally like a line. It's all your brain needs to pick up the information. See, like I can see automatically like my O is way wider than the weight on my C. So that means I got to add a little bit of weight on him. Make him gain some LBs here. It's making the rest of my letters look too fat. There we go. And then just kind of tweak as you go. And notice this is all still in the rough draft phase. Only once I have my weight consistent, my kerning looking good, my swashes balanced is when I start to ink. I don't start to put in those final details in the inking phase. I have everything completely planned out before I get into that inking, because to me that's permanent. Even regardless if I'm doing it digitally or not, it's going to be a way bigger pain in the ass for me to have to completely redraw a letter or change my mind halfway through the composition. I really want to make sure that I have a pretty organized process. And that way I'm not wasting time and I can work faster and see if something's not working quicker, right? All right, so let's go ahead and quickly fill this guy in. Can you believe we've only been online for 30 minutes? I feel like you've learned so much, my tiny, tiny, beautiful grasshoppers. So right now, you probably noticed, it's sans serif right now. Yes, we're going to add serifs. We're just going to wait until it is totally filled to do that. I'm going to get rid of these other layers and add those outlines back in. Just to really make sure, all right, is everything even? Is Nicole's name popping as much as it should be? As much as she deserves. Just like a client, like in your little babies that you make on paper. Are they as good as you saw them in your head? Are they? All right, super zoom. Add the line. Add the serif. This really, I think, helps things look a little bit more like powerful or dominant. Or just badass. I just like serifs. These are my favorite. These are what are called traditional serifs. Always draw the line and then you curve the line. We're not doing bubble letters. We don't want to just start curling stuff. Oh, that O doesn't have a line. Let's turn that layer back on so I can perfect the O. On the right layer? I am. Are you guys you guys at home perfecting your own names or whatever the fuck you're doing? Gotta get that serif in there. This E, they go into each other, then out over here. Now notice that I gave myself enough space to where I don't have to move my letters and my serifs aren't touching. All right, I really tried with you, Mr. Curled Crossbar, but it's just not working for me. Just normal crossbar today. Okay, and then we got Nicole's name. Now, there are things I can still do, like NIC looks really close, the L looks a little far away. I can also do that, make it a little bit closer. And I also forgot a serif, but that's all right. I actually think I don't need to mess with it. Get it a little bit like that. And then I just have to cut this guy off a little bit right there. And then she's looking sexy. Drawing my name with ya. I love it. I love it. So that's some way that you can kind of have a little bit more fun. Now, we also have Rick in here. So we can have another name. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do this in one color this time now that you're a little bit more familiar. I like this green. I'm going to go ahead and do Rick and then we'll do Erica because we got time. Now, I want to go over not just one word, but I want to go over two words. So if we actually wrote out Rick's full name, let's go ahead and say that you're doing a logo or something. So we're going to do Rick. And now if I think about this, now let me go ahead and like actually turn all my layers off for a second. Just start with a blank canvas. Yo, we about to do your name up in here. All right. So when thinking about your name, there's one thing you have to keep in mind, right? So we have Rick. And then your last name is Resnack. Haha, Resnack, okay? So obviously your first name is much smaller. It has way less characters than your last name. So you have to keep that in mind. So like if you just have everything left aligned, it might look a little weird. So if you're gonna have it be like in that kind of container, it needs to probably be centered. Or you can go ahead and have it on an axis. We're like trying to plan out what we're going to draw here now that we have more than one word to play with. Or another obvious solution is to go ahead and have your name kind of arced and then have this kind of arc that way. So that way it's kind of like a little smiley face. You could totally do that. I'm going to go basic here and I'm just going to go ahead and just have them right on top of each other just to make things really, really easy. So for me to do that, I'm going to go ahead and give myself I'm going to make my own guides. Oops. Probably should use another layer. So go ahead, create my own guides and do the cap height. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate it. And for now, I'm just gonna worry about the cap height and the baseline. Those are my guides, just so I can get a good idea of what I'm doing here. And I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate it for the next word. And the key reason why I'm doing this is so that way I know I have space between the words. So I know I'm not going to put these shits on top of each other. My dogs are just going at it right now. They're just licking each other, being cute. Okay. Rick's like, do the arc. We're going to do simple just for now. All right. So another thing we want to keep in mind is we need to figure out where our center point is. So center point's right about here. Here, let me clear my guides. Clear guides. This is the center of my artboard. So when you're trying to position your words all from the center and just kind of creating your own skeleton, I like to work from the inside out. So Rick is 4 letters. So that means that in the very, very middle, you have the I, and then you have the C. And I'm going to mark that here. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and do the K. and then the R. All right, just trying to get this centered, right? Now, it does kind of mess you up a little bit because the C is so much wider than the rest of the letters. So we might end up having to move this over anyways. But more or less, if you're working with a word that all the different letters are more or less the same width, give or take like things like the M and the W, which are usually wider, then that's a tool you can use. I'm going to do the same thing to his last name. So Resniak. The D and the Z are in the middle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters. So that means it's 3.5 in the middle. So 3.5 being the space of the Z. So that middle letter, Z, would actually go right here. Right in the middle. And then we would work our way out. Remember what I told you about the N? Went ahead and did the strokes first before I did the middle crossbar. Then we're going to go ahead and do the A. I'm really trying to make sure everything's looking good here. And then we got the K. I ran out of guides, but that's okay. I can just wing it. And then go ahead and add the D. Now that D is going to be hella wide, remember? Anything with a bowl. So just keep that in mind. The O's, everything. Now, if you want to go ahead and have a condensed D like this style, go for it. I think for this one, I want to push it a little bit. Actually, no. No, actually, yes. So indecisive. Okay, go ahead and add the E. Now, I'm making this a little bit wider. But that's okay. That's just how my brain wants to draw it, I guess. And then I'll add the R over here. And over here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and center these guys together. Oh, of course I did it. That's so funny. I didn't even mean to do that. Oh, well. Center Rick's name. A little bit more. I'm gonna take my guide off. Obviously, the C is like way too far away. I over committed. Get that. If you have any like glaring kerning options, like fix it. Where you going? Don't run away from me, bitch. All right. I hate when Photoshop just wants to like go on an errand without me. Okay. So just fixing these little things. If you're doing this traditionally, then you would just be using another piece of paper and you would just subtly move the top and the bottom pages further or together, depending on what you need to fix in your composition. So that's pretty good. I'm going to merge these all together because I don't know what's merged and what's not. I'm so confused. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lower this guy. Now we're going to go ahead and add those swashes, right? So what are some options here? I never fully draw the letter. I just add extensions. So I can go ahead. I can have this R curl into that I. I could have the C curl. I could have this K curl over the C. I could have this guy curl towards itself. This guy could have a nice little curl. Since Rick is so much smaller and so many less characters than his last name, I really want to try to extend that first word as much as possible to try to make it a little bit bigger than it actually is without making the two fucking lines of letters different sizes, right? So I actually do like that. For this next red one, I'll probably just leave him normal, but I'll maybe still do an underline. This D, if it was more condensed, I could have added like a little curly Q, but I don't really have space, so I'm not going to. This Z, I'm fine with. This A, I could go ahead and maybe just have like a really fun crossbar. In this K, have it loop here. Maybe have this K loop. You don't have, when you're like looping certain letters that you could like loop everything, you want to make sure that you're not doing it too crazy. Like on this K, I have a loop in 2 spots. I don't want to add another loop here, another loop there. That's just that's loopy. You really only want to make it subtle. The same reason this K. So I actually do like those extensions. Is there anything else I'd want to do? No, I think I'm happy with that. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead, add some weight. And just again, wherever it makes sense in the composition. I'm going to start to go a little bit faster here for time. If you've been paying attention, you know exactly why I'm doing everything. Now, I'm a big personal fan of having the leg of the R kind of curl out before it swoops versus just having it straight out then curl. So I actually have it kind of go out and then under. And don't forget that these two lines do connect. So this curl shouldn't be below this bowl. It needs to be a part of it. But we don't want to go below that line or else it's going to start to touch the D. So we don't want that. So that's why I'm kind of keeping it in line. The C, probably going to do the same curl that we did before. Again, want it a little bit above and below. Oh, it's crazy wide. Now, I'd be pretty interested to see if anyone right now is going ahead and you're following along, whether you're drawing your own name or your own word, or you're just copying what I'm doing. Go ahead and post it. Post it on Twitter, Instagram. Actually, let's just say Twitter, or email it to me. Let's make it easy so we don't have to like go searching on a bunch of platforms. I want you guys to either go ahead and mention me on Twitter, which is just hashtag letter shop, not just shop, not just letter. Let me go ahead and like spell my name correctly. Letter shop, or you can go ahead and email me what you've been working on directly to my email. And if you do that within the next hour, pretty much hour, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll give you notes on what you made. And then I'll go ahead and be able to help you critique it a little bit. And if you're able to do it like right now, then we can just do it live as soon as we finish Rick's name. So Rick's like, I don't do Twitter. That's why I gave you my email, Snookums. Come on, buddy. Twitter's okay. I'm kind of like fed up with all social media, but then it makes me so much money. So I'm like, okay, fine. You got banned from it? Ooh. You probably did something wrong. Don't worry. Twitter is almost like an irrelevant social media platform, especially for like artists. You don't really need it. It's just a conversational platform. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop this guy here so it can be flat. And then this eye, it's gonna build off the middle of it. I could still mess with like kerning and make this like tighter or whatever, but I want it to just kind of be spread out because I can always make things closer. It's much different if I want to go ahead and make things further away, so it's just easier. So I might as well just kern it in than kern it out. Again, doing the swoop in the leg. Swooping it in a way where it's not going to interfere with anything. Now, the reason I looped it over the eye is because I have so much negative space around the eye. So I can go ahead and fucking like just do whatever I want. It's not going to make that I read as a different letter. But sometimes if you connect it to different letters, it looks weird and it's cluttered. And that can be a bad thing. So we definitely don't want to do that. Anytime you're doing like a straight line, I just, again, hit that shift key like crazy. I'm going straight. I'm fucking hitting shift key. That is for show. I like this D wide. I should have made the D wide in the workbook. Okay. This is a Z. Z's are fun. Now, again, if you want this to be flat, if you want the edges to be flat, then you have to add weight below and above. If you want it to be pointy, if you want it to be pointy at the ends, then you actually have to kind of tailor it. You have to do this and kind of add it. It's really hard. So I actually prefer doing the flats because then you can just add weight below and above. I could just do this and this, and then it's boop. Oh, actually it's sharp. Never mind. Fuck it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think I did that in a weird way and I don't know how to repeat it. Another thing is you want to make sure that these strokes aren't going outside each other. Like this guy right here. Not a good sign. So that means that this guy actually needs to come out a little bit more. needs to be aligned like a square. Doing the end. Actually, I want to make this a little bit thinner. Just getting really comfortable. And the more you draw, the easier it's going to get and the quicker you're going to be able to do it. Like, people are always like, Dina, how the fuck do you do so many things in a day? It's because I'm just really, really proficient. And I've like literally have the process down to a T. So it just doesn't take me very long. You just got to find your flow. Like, what kind of brushes do you like to use? What's your style? What's your favorite way to draw a letter form? There's just things that you immediately over time just figure out, like, this is what I don't, it's what I want and what I don't want. It's kind of like someone who starts to date when they're a little bit older, they have like more of an idea of what they want in a partner versus when you're younger, you're just kind of like whoever likes me, right? The same thing with letters. It shouldn't just be about what you can do, but it's about what you like to do. All right, we just quickly added some weight. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this other line, all these things. And then we just perfect. It's like, all right, Mr. C, you're crazy. I don't know what you think your problem is. K is running away. And then this is when you start to tweak. So notice that you don't want to add swashes as an afterthought. You want to use it to help fill up the best use of the space. That is what swashes are there for. And then anything else, like if you're putting this inside of a shape or a certain container, anything that you can't make a swash out of, that's when you use filigree. That's when you use like the outside like accents and stuff to fill up the space. You're curious, how come you are using Photoshop for this? I only use Photoshop. I hate Illustrator. I hate the pen tool. I hate it so much. I like Photoshop because it keeps the integrity of the handmade more. Not a big Illustrator fan, never have been. I just personally don't see the point in vectorizing with the pen tool, making everything like perfectly clean and making it look like a font when it obviously isn't. Like, obviously, you like a trained eye, you can tell that it's custom, but to people who aren't, which is like the majority of the population, don't. So it kind of like gives it more of that authentic feeling to my work. This end got like hella. You got so thin. Okay. So then we just fill it in roughly, and then we're going to add those serifs, and then we're done. And so that way when you ink it, you're all ready. Or if you want to go ahead and pop it in Illustrator, go for it. Whatever makes you happy. Now, if you guys are wondering like what kind of decorations and stuff that you can add to this style, I think the ones that like were the easiest and most fun to play with is you really don't want to add any inline graphics. Inline graphics are like liner decorations that go inside of the letter, just because although this is kind of a thick style, it's not super thick, so we don't want to like make it super cluttered by adding an inline stroke or anything like that. I don't think you can get away with it unless you just beefed up the sizing a little bit more. But what you can do is play with outline graphics. So drop shadows look really good with the style. If you just do a drop line, which is a line that indicates a shadow but doesn't actually fully extend from the behind the letter, that always looks really good. Or if you do like a double drop, I think that's good too. You just got to be really careful with the size of your drop shadow. Usually the thinner a style is, the thicker the drop shadow needs to be. And the thicker the style, the thinner the drop shadow needs to be, because you don't want them to be competing at the same width. That's like really important for drop shadows. Like I can't have the drop shadow be the exact same width of the letter itself, or else it makes it hard to read. There's nothing distinguishing, telling my eye what to look at first. I love that you hate Illustrator. It's my favorite. That's cool, man. Honestly, sometimes I wonder like why I even pay for the entire Adobe suite. Because I pretty much just use Photoshop. And like my extent of Illustrator, it's so funny because I remember like in college, I would think of the image trace tool as this like, oh, you're just too lazy to use the pen tool. Like I had like angst and like hatred and prejudice built around people who would image trace, because then, like, especially when I was in design school in like 2009, 10, that kind of area, people were mostly using it to like posterize other people's work. So they would like just put it would just look like a, I don't know, like a really shitty 90s poster, like grunge poster. And people weren't using it in the right way. But now that's pretty much what I use exclusively. So if my, my client needs to screen print a design, they need a vector file, I'll go ahead and I have like a preset settings, dialog, like a custom setting for my dialog box in Illustrator for image trace. That's kind of like something I know for the most part is going to look good. It's not going to overly smooth the letters. It's going to give it kind of like that perfect balance of imperfect and perfect that my client hired me to do, because I literally have this process for every single project I work on. So clients that work with me know exactly the kind of quality they're getting, because everything is done in the same way. It looks totally different styles, colors, aesthetics, demographics, but same brushes, same process. So everything looks cohesive, even though it could be for completely different things. All right, that rant almost took up enough time for me to fill this in. Poor Bob Ross, how did he do it? I wonder how long like Bob Ross practiced painting, like the paintings he taught before he taught them, or did he just be like, fuck it, today we're gonna fucking put a mountain here and we're gonna put a fucking happy tree here? Like, how did he do it? Anytime I try to like over plan a live stream, it never goes well, because you never know what's gonna happen. You like both, Nicole? They have special places in your heart. Dina just emailed you my super, super, super first name drawing. Oh, after I tried following yours, excuse the shittiness. Oh, don't worry about it. All right, I'll pull it up and we'll critique it. Now, if anyone's watching this in the future, right now it's 6 o'clock. It's almost the end of our live stream, Pacific Standard Time here in Portland, Oregon. So if I get any emails today for critiques, I'll totally do them. But if it's after the fact, the window has been closed. Okay, last step, everything's filled in. Even though I could perfect the fuck out of this, like I'd probably want to change the C because it's bothering me. But the last step would be just adding serifs. And it kind of and it helps fill up that negative space that I like kind of, this is what I made space for, pretty much. Fight the urge to start with the serif, start with the line. Oh, it's gonna touch. It's gonna touch. Put you in there now. This is such good practice. I love doing these live streams. Especially like trying to draw from your head versus trying to look at the alphabet or the step-by-steps. But considering I made the step-by-steps, I probably don't need to look at it as much. But the good news is when you start to draw and add these styles to your head, you don't have to worry about anything like looking like Dina's style. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about like you copying me or something ridiculous like that, because it's coming from your head. I just taught you the basics on how to create it in the first place. So the way that you draw this A, even if you made it the exact same thing, same stroke, same serif, same crossbar, it's still gonna look totally different because you made it. Especially if you're not tracing and you're just, even with reference, it's very hard to just mimic someone else's work. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Rick, we made your name. We made your name. We made it. We made it. All right. Let's go ahead and check my email. Boop, 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 boop. Ah, boom, 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 boom. I'm having coffee, even though it's 6 o'clock. It's gonna be okay. All right, we just got Nicole and Lubalin fast name draw. Oh, you actually drew it on the thing? Here, I'll just pull up this entire window here. Okay. So, oh, Nicole did something funky with this with this I. Okay, so I know why you did this, because it's symmetry, right? You have like a symmetrical image with the L and the I, but when that I, it now looks like an upside down L. So it's mismatched, you know what I mean? So I think that was kind of a mistake, but I'm glad that you're playing with it. Just some kerning issues, nothing too big. Definitely beware of adding serifs to things like this, like the ends of the L and the ends of the C, because it starts to look like an elephant trunk. You know what I'm saying? It looks like a little elephant trunky. You really want to add them to the edges of the letters. Like, just like how, perfect example, how you didn't add a serif on this curl of the N. Look how much better that looks. So much better. No, but the fact that you tried it is great. And you had this loop. You got the N right. It's a little wide, but that's okay. You really need to just work on your curves of your C. I mean, you're working traditionally. Oh wait, no, you're using an app. So this is like perfect example where like you could have added just a little bit more weight here and just kind of like super zoomed in and then go ahead and colored that in, and that probably would have been a little bit easier. And then you just don't have serifs on your L and on the left side of the E. And other than that, you'd be pretty set. All right, let's check out Rick's. Oh, look at him. This looks so 70s. I love it. I wasn't sure about that. True, yeah. This is cool. Okay, so something I would definitely add, like the first thing I was like, oh, I wish you would have done this, is I wish there was a curve. Oh, I zoomed in too much. Ah, stop it. I really wish that I'm like pointing at it, like you can tell where I'm pointing. Adding like a curve, like right here and right here. Like maybe a big curve on this main guy and this one right here. Just so, because the right side's looking really like everything's pointing to the right, which is good because we read from left to right. But I feel like it's all the weight and curls are on the right side of it, so it's like tilted for me. And sorry if my camera isn't like synced up with my audio; it's having a moment. Okay, so I think that would make it a little bit better, just adding that curl on the right side, the left side. I just wanted to explain why, so you would understand. Okay, so I love that you ended up doing like a circus serif. I don't know why I keep zooming in. I'm like not even touching it. This is called a split serif. So this is a little bit more circus than it is Lubalin, but I think it actually looks really cool. And instead of having this curl into the straight, I probably would have just gone ahead and had it be straight and then curl out. Like, don't feel like you need to blend it in there because of that extra negative space you're filling. It's making it appear thicker than the rest of that letter, where the stroke needs to seem really even. The left of the F. So see my mouse right here? It would go like this. It would curl like that. And then on this guy, it would curl right back in here. This of is adorable. I love it. You're just missing a serif right here on the L, this little tiny L. This A is just a little crooked, but that's not a big deal. In this R, I wish it just wasn't straight down and out. I wish it did that kind of flare like this. So this is just because I really like this, I'm gonna go ahead and just like put it into Photoshop and make some notes on it. Just so you can really see what I'm talking about, because I would love to see you finish this piece. Rick just went ahead and joined our mastermind group. We have a 10-person mastermind group that we meet every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We kind of like critique each other's work. We help each other out. And he originally was just getting critiques from me. Oops, wrong button. So I'm excited to see how you grow. You're going to grow fast, I can already tell. Okay, so I'm getting click, happy, full of flavor. Show and find out. All right, just go ahead and drag it to Photoshop. Okay, you go ahead and I'll draw these notes. And I'll email them back to you, but just to show you what I'm doing here. Bump up the volume. All right, so this is what I would love to see. So going ahead, adding like a big swash. Every time you send me a thing, it's always in grayscale. It's never in RGB or anything. It's so weird. All right, so I want to be able to add color. All right, so I want to see like a big swash like this. Right. This guy, I probably would have it, instead of it having that split serif, I probably would have it just be a normal serif, and then have this guy be like, and then curl. See how it kind of has this like lump that rises and then falls versus just curling out? Kind of gives it more of like a cooler vibe. And then I know that we just taught like kind of like a curly style, so try not to end the swashes, especially if you're trying to make it look like this style. If not, you just want it to have that kind of end. There's nothing wrong with that, but just for this specific style, it wouldn't get fatter at the ends. It would just be flat. And then this guy obviously would go up more like that. The of is super cute. I'm not going to change anything about it. And again, this would be like flat. I like the way this L dips. Cool with flavor. O's always suck. But that's more of like a normal O. This R isn't straight, so I'm just going to show you a straight line. Just show you how off it is. And then just having this go like this, it just looks a little bit more dynamic than having it go just straight down and then out. It doesn't look bad. I think this, for me, is probably like a personal preference thing. So if it was me, I'd probably do something like this. But this is very good. Like, I really, really like it. And then as like a final thing, I would just say all around. Like, just in general, go ahead and just expand the kerning. Like, go ahead, next time you draw this, and it might even be easier since you already scanned it in. Something that I used to do when I was working traditionally is I would go ahead, I would go into Photoshop, right? I would use the lasso tool and I would cut out my letters. Okay, and then I'd go ahead and move them with the correct kerning, and then I'd print it out, and then I would go ahead and trace on top of it my corrections, because sometimes doing kerning from like tracing paper or a light pad can be really difficult unless you just have that kind of skill honed in a little bit better. So sometimes using Photoshop, there's still a way you can bring that digital help into your traditional way of making art. Cause you da bomb. Oh, that way on the F. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, save this, and just email it back to you. I want you to go on my desktop. Direct, I've looked at so much of your work today. I love it. All right. Ugh, my computer is like, Dina, turn me off. I need to be restarted and updated. I hear you, boo. I hear you. All right, thank you guys so much for watching today's live stream and dealing just with technical difficulties and all the things that happen with a live stream. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Me walking you through the toughest letters of the Novel Lubalin style that is now available on patreon.com/lettershop, and just kind of going through how you can start to create your own pieces while also adding like those really cool swashes and extensions just to kind of make it more yours and make it look like lettering and not just a font, right? All right, Rick, Nicole, everybody else who came in this beautiful place, thank you so much for your time. I will see you on the flip side. Again, patrons, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, either directly on Patreon or on YouTube, whichever platform you choose. And if you guys have any ideas for future styles, future tutorials, anything really, I'm super open-minded. Let me know what kind of content you want, and I will make it for you. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the flippy flip. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.